Thanks everyone for being here. I just worked for 30 minutes compiling a awesome update for you on a variety of topics and then lost it on my computer. So I have a bunch of handwritten notes and other things here as an alternative. So first, we haven't had a press conference in a couple of weeks, so we'll get caught up here a little bit. The COVID-19 situation, of course, continues. Pennington County is now at 424 total cumulative cases since the beginning of the pandemic. And this number accounts for 7% of the state total cumulative cases. Pennington County makes up about 13% of the state's population. We have about 7% of the total positive cases. So there's room there for us to expect if we're going to be on track with other communities that we're probably going to see some more cases. Of the 424 cases, 252 are recovered, leaving 172 active cases. So that the number of active cases is going down. And then daily we see an uptick in positive cases anywhere from 6 or 8 to today is 22 new cases. Our high one-day addition of cases has been 27. There's a mass testing event this weekend at the Oyate Healthcare Center, and this will be focusing on tribal members. So they're reaching out to the Native American community to try to get as many people who may be symptomatic or to come to the center to be tested. They hope to have between 200 and 400 people tested during that time. They have additional testing instruments and supplies on hand, so they're going to go forward with that this weekend. Now that'll logically cause an increase in the number of positive cases, but it'll also give them a better feel for how hard the Native American community is being hit with the pandemic. The emergency shelter, which is set up in the Rushmore Hall of the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center, will be closing June 26th. Today there are 9 patients in that center. That has been an average or high average of the daily census of that facility during this whole time. And we planned big. We anticipated that the chronic homeless individuals in town would take this pandemic exceptionally hard, and we planned for it to keep the entire community safe as well as those individuals. And we have not found a great increase in the number of chronic homeless individuals with COVID-19. It's not that they're not there, it's that the ones that are sick are not as sick. The ones in need of a shelter have been much less than we anticipated. Shelter is also very expensive to operate, and so we're now talking about what other options we may have or that these individuals may have. But we know keeping that big space over the Civic Center and all the staff is not going to be an option past June 26th. So, talk a little bit about the council's decision Monday night to convert the COVID-19 regulations into recommendations. So first of all, here's the reality of that decision. It puts us now in line with virtually every other city in South Dakota. At this moment, I believe there's one other city that has laws enacted regarding the restrictions. And that city is Brookings, and Brookings is going through their second reading of an ordinance to convert all of those requirements to recommendations. Sioux Falls has never had a law regulating behavior during the COVID-19 pandemic. They started out with recommendations, and that's where they are today. So now I'm not telling you that we're doing this or that the council did this because everybody else is doing it. I'm telling you that there's similar reactions in communities across the state to this type of governance, these type of regulations. And now that we are months into a global pandemic, the population is very much more conditioned to practice safe behavior. But what I hear all the time is someone will say, I went out shopping and no one was wearing a mask. And they use that as an indication that no one is taking safety precautions. And I say it really depends a lot on what you're looking for. On the same weekend, someone told me this. I went to a local grocery store and found that at least 8 out of 10 customers were wearing masks, and all of the employees were wearing masks. So there are safety precautions in here. At the moment, we have 4 members of the media in this building who are all wearing masks. So we're not as ill prepared as we were in February. So anyway, there's a lot of grief, a lot of lashing out over the council's decision, and many equating it with a certain death sentence for all of us. And that combined with tourist season, combined with the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, means all but certain doom. And I just think that we need to look at the other cities in South Dakota to see what the life of their ascent to their peak has been and how it is currently. We need to keep our eye on other states and to start watching more real data rather than feared data. So now I'm not letting us off the hook and saying this is all behind us, because it's not. In fact, I wouldn't even bet that we're halfway through this pandemic. It's here. And I think we're going to, for what we will have lacked in the height of the peak of infections, as first predicted, we're going to make up for in the longevity and the duration of this pandemic. So stay buckled up out there. We're going to continue to fight this thing and to have to practice safe behaviors for many months to come, if not longer. So among all of the pandemic-related issues, we have to remember that we also have many other facilities and operations in the city of Rapid City that need to be operated and services that need to be provided. So I have an update of some of those departments now. The Parks Department is largely open at this moment. All parks and trails are open. The tennis courts, volleyball courts, basketball courts are open. The skateboard park is open. Off-leash dog areas are open. The golf courses are open. Special parks events are still canceled through June 30th. The disc courses at Omaha Street, Jackson Park, and LaCroix Park are open. All of the leased athletic fields are open, and there's leaseholder agreements and the adherence to CDC guidelines. As of July 1st, the picnic shelters will be available by reservation. The remaining portion of the park restroom facilities will be open. And at this time, Parks and Recreation Administrative Office remains closed. In the fire department, we are seeing the retirement of 4 long-term, high-powered fire officials. So we have promotional tests underway at the moment and a lot of preparation to fill in for what is 111 years of combined service. Of course, first we have Fire Chief Rod Seals retiring. His last day is Friday. He's been here 25 years. We have Battalion Chief Tim Daly retiring after 34 years. Section Chief Matt Culberson after 30 years, and Captain Joe Jaden, 22 years. So our thanks to those individuals for putting in a lifetime of service to the City of Rapid City. In the IT world, as I mentioned, I had a minor glitch in my own work equipment just before I came down here. Those things happen, but the pandemic has brought a number of new cyber threats to the world. Rapid City is no exception to that, so there are extra measures that must be taken in updating hardware and software and policies to make sure that we're not vulnerable for the new series of attacks. There has obviously been a steady increase in the number of users using the internet and the city's software to pay bills, and we encourage that to keep happening. Community development is really the big one for updates. In May was the second highest for building permits, the second highest May since 2015. A total of 360 permits with a total valuation of $15.4 million. That is about maybe $6 million more than last May. Some significant developments are under construction. Orchard Meadows subdivision, a 659-unit apartment complex, one of the largest in South Dakota. 102 townhomes, 90 additional apartment units with a variety of housing options. And then in the Shepherd Hills subdivision, a 606 apartment unit complex with 160 of those units in the first phase. At 100 St. Joseph Street, a 99-unit apartment building with mixed commercial uses. At 18 East Kansas City Street, 45-unit apartment building with mixed commercial uses. In the Shepherd Hills subdivision, 118-unit mobile home park. In addition, 203 new single-family lots are being created in a variety of developments around town. The commercial developments underway at the moment: Midwestern Mechanical, 3414 Eglin Drive, 48,000 square feet. The Rapid Car Wash on South 5th Street. West River Ear, Nose, and Throat, corner of East Minnesota and 5th Street. AutoZone, 2005 Mount Rushmore Road. And Sherwin-Williams on Lando Lane up in the Menards neighborhood. Also, the One Heart campus renovations are underway with a completion date sometime in 2021. The new Monument Hospital expansion and parking ramp is nearing completion as well. And the new Monument Arena at the Civic Center is well underway. Steel's going up in the air, steel and concrete, and it is on time and on budget. So far as master planning goes, we're still in our master planning process doing the 6th Street Corridor feasibility study. This is to make the intersection of Omaha Street and 6th Street more walkable, more bikeable, and more livable. And this is the type of things cities do to help enhance the quality of life and the public safety, and to make the area more attractive for residents and visitors. A public survey is currently underway, and this plan should be done in fall. So this is essentially a feasibility plan. Meanwhile, we talked at the City Council meeting Monday about the solid waste master plan process, which is nearly $700,000 to get that done. And there's a great amount of discussion about that, and a great amount of criticism online from citizens that say, hey, we've seen that the city's in some budget difficulty, and now you're spending $700,000 for people to come in here and tell us how to do our job. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and it's a lot more important than that. The cities do things that no one else will do because they're not profitable, first of all. And that is, in major cities like this, it's the production of water, treating wastewater, providing garbage pickup, landfill services, and that sort of thing. So in the solid waste and wastewater are two of the most regulated things that cities do, regulated by the state and federal, a variety of agencies, and there's a lot of potential impact on the environment. So there are many questions that have to be answered in a way to help us visualize what the logical forward steps over the next decades for our solid waste operation are to be. For example, we are constantly evaluating how much land we have left at the landfill, how long it will take us to fill it up. A lot of variables have to be weighed into that, including the expanding population, any user agreements with outside organizations, the overall, the incoming trash into that facility has to be evaluated constantly also. So in a ballpark sense, we're somewhere in the 30 to 40 years before we're out of space at the landfill. Out of space and likely not able to buy more in that area. So we have to know how to deal with that. Keep in mind, when you bury garbage in a municipal landfill, that land can never be used for anything ever again. That land will remain untouched for eternity. And so that means this is a very costly and a very careful process that must be undergone. So we have to look at that. Each one of those landfill cells have to be treated. There we have to protect the groundwater from that trash. We have to extract the methane gas that is created by the rotting garbage. We have to dispose of that gas in some way that is environmentally safe. And there are just a number of regulations that have to be adhered to. And then the ultimate question of where are we going to put our new landfill? How many years will that take? Realistically, all things considered, it could take 10 to 20 years to identify a new landfill location, get all through the permitting, get all the property acquired that needs to be, and you know, it'd be easy for people in my generation to blow that off because it's not going to affect me. I assume by the time I'm around 100, I'm going to stop going to the local landfill to dump my garbage off. So it's important future planning. And not everyone is qualified or experienced in this line of work. It's a very careful process. So I'm just saying there's a lot more to understand here and a lot more benefit to the community than what meets the eye. Okay, switching subjects to the library. The library is now open. There is a face covering or a mask requirement. If someone does not have a mask, they have alternative means for you to acquire the services you're looking for. That would be the drive-up window or having kind of a valet service there. The library employees will do whatever they can to help you, but they also need to protect their customers and themselves. There's a special time for families with young children, and that is on Tuesday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. And a special time for those customers that would put themselves in the higher risk category, either due to age or compromised immune systems, and that is from Wednesdays to 9 to 11. In the police department, the annual Guns and Hoses blood drive is coming up. It runs Tuesday the 23rd of this month through the 25th, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that's on the 25th, and on the 26th from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. It'll be in the Rushmore Mall, in the storefront near the Buckle. And by Talent, the local blood collection organization describes their blood supply, that they're in critical need of restocking. So, probably another casualty of the pandemic. Civic Center, all events through June are postponed or canceled. There are some individual events that will take place in July and August based upon safety evaluations. And we are planning at this moment to opening for larger events in September. And of course, it's not near September, so when we get more to that point in time, it'll be easier to evaluate. Okay. Finance office, the finance window is now open downstairs in the lobby. We have a partial reopening of City Hall. The lobby area is expanded where customers may now come for service. The second floor, we have construction down the second floor hallway, so we have a table out front where customers of building services or public works will be able to meet city employees out there to get their needs met. So we're not fully open yet. And now, finally, on the topic of the protests, the national situation with defunding the police and all types of other themed protests that have occurred here. There's been a number of protests, both virtual and physical. So a lot of online attacks, personal attacks, and early on I issued a public statement that wasn't especially helpful. The local protest themed Black Lives Matter, and a more common one recently is to defund the police, have been regularly attended by hundreds of people locally. In Rapid City, there's been no violent clashes, a few pushing and shoving incidents, and a handful of arrests based on misdemeanors for blocking traffic and that sort of thing. So, although I'm grateful for the lack of property damage or injury, I'm also disappointed at the narrative and the methods that are being used to communicate it. I've been asked by some of the protesters or some of the spectators that I should be marching with the protesters or taking a knee with the protesters or laying down with my hands behind my back to show support, or at least making a public statement supporting Black Lives Matter. That's a tough pill for me to swallow when the person standing holding a sign that says Black Lives Matter is standing next to a person advocating for the killing of police officers. And it's clear that there's only one acceptable response to these requests. I can only say yes, because if I say no, then that will be evidence of a improper attitude or evidence of racism or evidence of a lack of concern for people of color or for the community in general. So that's a hard question to navigate then. Why don't you come out and support us, march with us, let us take pictures of you kneeling down. Well, this is not how conversation occurs. This is not how change happens in America. The groups do not really seem to want a dialogue, but in contrast, they're performing a monologue. And as long as this is the preferred tactic of the protest groups, I'm going to remain on the sidelines. That's just the way it is. If the group wants me to express my feelings about racism or police brutality, that's easy. I don't condone either. And I've taken steps along my career path to condemn both. I've taken steps to bring about change. But I am, whether it's me or someone after me, and all the people before me, we are incapable of doing this alone. This change cannot happen simply by shouting. This is going to take cooperation and collaboration and involvement. During my time with the Rapid City Police Department, we became the only South Dakota agency to seek and achieve international accreditation. I was brought up in a department to understand the police were the hired hands of the community. Today, Rapid City Police Department remains in the 5% of accredited law enforcement agencies. For the groups protesting in the streets and on social media, this is your official invitation to sit with me and other government leaders for dialogue on these issues. I hear you. If and when we meet, I hope we hear each other. I prefer to live in a community with a shared goal and shared vision and a shared sense of community. And to steal a quote, a recent quote from a friend, I want our hearts to be more open than our fear of being wrong. And when you got people like me, people in elected positions, either afraid to speak because of saying the wrong thing, or speaking and saying something that's perceived to be wrong, then we don't move forward that way. We stall. We stall, and it, I think, creates a self-fulfilling prophecy that nobody wants to do anything about it. So I'm just telling you, I'm willing to sit and visit and take ideas, and I'm willing to explain the differences between Rapid City and Minneapolis, Rapid City and New York City, then Boston, then Los Angeles, then Seattle. We are a unique community. And people watching this event right now know what I'm talking about. We're unique, and we have a unique ability to work together if we choose to and get through things like this. But as long as it's only shouting going on, it won't happen. That's my fear. So I would open it up. I know that was a lot, but I'll open it up for any questions that anyone might have in the room.
Sydney Thorson, Keloland. Yep, I was just going to ask if there was any update on the Rapid City Transit System. I know that that was opening on Monday.
Yes, that did open Monday with slightly reduced hours. I believe the hours for Rapid Transit are 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And there's no Saturday or Sunday service. And then for Rapid Ride, I believe the hours are 7:20 a.m. to about 4:15 p.m. and also no Saturday or Sunday service. So we have new and improved personal protective equipment for the drivers. We're urging all of the passengers to wear face coverings, and we will have those face coverings available to them should they not have one. The best way to keep Rapid Transit in operation is to keep everyone well. We do have all 3 drivers who had previously tested positive from COVID-19 back at work. They're all well, and so things are looking up there. There's been a lot of progress made in that 2-week period where they stood down that service in order to make those improvements and allow the staff to self-monitor.
Jeff Voss from KRTA and Black Hills Fox. With Sturgis giving the go-ahead for the 80th rally, is Rapid looking at doing anything different with how they set aside parking for the bikers, or any type of regulations coming out?
Well, I'll be honest with you, we haven't had the discussion yet about parking, but I think typically it has been that authority has been delegated to the police department to make those limited accommodations for motorcycle parking. I just haven't heard of that happening yet. Of course, we just had the decision on Monday from Sturgis to go ahead with the rally. So I would expect the same.
Nathan Thompson with the Rapid City Journal. In addition to Sturgis, we also have in just a little over 2 weeks' time the return of fireworks to Mount Rushmore. Obviously, Mount Rushmore is not part of our jurisdiction here in Rapid City, but could you talk about any preparations that city government is taking for the influx of visitors as well as the potential for a presidential visit?
Well, I have to be honest and tell you that the majority of our available resources will be in use either up at Mount Rushmore or in other areas of town that may also be affected by dignitary visitation. And so I've been involved in these before. It takes every available employee. It becomes very cumbersome, very intense, and some long days, not only the day of the event, but the days leading up to it. So all of our attention is going to be focused on providing security and support for those events, and then we will, like everyone else, have to wait and see if there was a negative effect from an infection standpoint to see if anything different happened. But that's where we're going to be.
Just a quick follow-up to that question, Mayor. With the potential of, again, a presidential visit, Tulsa has a rally going on for the president this weekend. Besides the health concerns, what protections or preparations will the city be taking if there is protests, violence, those types of things? Are we asking for additional resources at this point?
Well, virtually all law enforcement, and I would believe National Guard units would be available for one of those contingencies, either the event itself or for the fallout from that event. And right in that same time frame, then there's a major gathering just outside the city at the racetrack, and then a gathering downtown. And so we're going to be spread thin. We're going to do the best we can, but we'll be prepared to provide for security for both the presidential detail as well as any protests. But we'll be tired at the end because in a season like that, all the days off typically get canceled, the hours are lengthened, becomes a very cumbersome and very expensive operation.
Just a follow-up to the Oyate Health with their testing that's going on this weekend. Are people just able to come up? Do they need to make appointments? How is that going to be handled with trying to keep social distancing in place?
Good question. Oyate Healthcare is asking people to pre-register in order to get that tracking information on the front end, but they will not refuse a walk-up at that time. They're going to have multiple instruments set up and an increase in staff to take care of that event. Any other questions from the room? All right, thanks everyone, and I will let you know, just to give you a little preview, with the fire chief retiring, we will on Friday announce an interim fire chief, and so we'll wait to send out a release on that day. So thank you, everyone.